These are the top 5 mistakes I see people doing when trying to tune their stringed instrument like the guitar or ukulele. Number 1, don't try to tune by ear if you really don't know how to do it correctly. There are tons of clip-on tuners that you can put in your pedal board if you're running your guitar through a pedal board. There are tuner apps on your phone and tuner websites. So many options exist. So if you don't really know how to tune your instrument correctly, just use one of those. I think sometimes people try to show off and say, oh no, I can tune by ear, and then they just do it themselves without any sort of tuning device to help. And then their instrument's out of tune. And it's really not very cool to tune by ear if you don't actually do it correctly. It's way cooler to have your instrument actually be in tune. Some of the best musicians I know have tuners in their pedal board that their guitar is running through. They use clip-on tuners. Whatever they need to do to make sure that the instrument is actually in tune. Now, a good thing to practice sometimes is tuning your instrument to another instrument. For instance, if I were to play a note on the piano and then I try to tune my string to that note, that's a great thing to do, and that's really good for training your ears. But if you do that, you should still check it with some kind of tuning device afterwards just to make sure you did it correctly. It takes a long time to be able to truly tune by ear correctly, so there's no need to rush that process. And as I said, the coolest thing to do is to have your instrument actually be in tune. And it's totally okay to use a tuner. Like, that doesn't make you a bad musician at all. Honestly, most of the professional musicians I know have tuning devices, little clip-on tuners in their pedal board, whatever it is. So it's really not a sign of being a bad musician if you're using one of these things. I think it's actually something that amateur people think is a sign of being a good musician. Like, when people first start out, they think it's cool to not use a tuner. They think that's some sort of indicator that they're a good musician. But as I said, pretty much all the professional musicians I know use tuners, so just make sure your instrument's actually in tune. Number 2, the tuner is set to the wrong instrument. So I'm going to turn this tuner on really quickly. Okay, so as you can see, I'm going to try to hold this up to the camera, okay? So here is my tuner. Do you see how it says CHRO right now, C-H-R-O? So that stands for chromatic. By the way, to turn it on, I just used this, I held down the power button. Now I'm going to press the power button just quickly again. Let's see what happens. Okay, now it says guitar. Now it says violin. Now it says uke. And now it says bass, okay? And then it went back to CHRO. So CHRO stands for chromatic. So if you set it to chromatic, that means it's listening for all 12 pitches. I usually set my tuners to chromatic, so I recommend doing that too. It's not a bad option. Now, you could set it to chromatic, or you could set it to your instrument specifically. So if you're tuning a guitar, you could set it to guitar. If you're tuning it to violin, you could set it to violin, uke for ukulele, bass for bass, etc. Now, it's good to mention that sometimes these tuners don't actually say the instrument name spelled out. Sometimes it just says C for chromatic, B for bass, U for ukulele, G for guitar, and V for violin. So just know that that's what that is, and make sure that you actually have it either set to the correct instrument or you have it set to C for chromatic, okay? Very important to make sure it's set to the right instrument, because if it's set to the wrong instrument, it will not work properly. So make sure it's set to the correct instrument, and you usually just have to press the power button a bunch of times to switch through the different instruments. Mistake number 3, turning the wrong tuning peg when you're tuning. So let's say I'm trying to tune this G string right here. I've seen people suddenly start twisting that one instead. So if you're starting off and you're new to tuning, just follow your string up the neck and make sure you're going to the correct tuning peg before you start adjusting it, okay? This, you can follow the string all the way up, see, oh, okay, it goes to this tuning peg. Then you know to turn that one, okay? Mistake number 4, they don't see the sharps or flats when they're tuning using a tuner. So for instance, let's say I'm trying to tune this string to the note G, okay? Now let's look at what's happening here, okay? So can you see my tuning peg? All right, so it's saying G something, right? I'm tuning it. Okay, looks like I'm getting close, right? Oh, there we go. Okay, it's in tune. But hey, if you look closely, it says G sharp, not G, right? See how it says G sharp? There's a little sharp down there. You see that? So that's actually not the correct pitch. We want it to say just G, not G sharp. So always pay attention and see if there's a little sharp or flat next to the note, and make sure it doesn't have that unless you're trying to tune it to a note that has a sharp or flat in it. So since it's G sharp instead of G, we need to lower the tuning a half step to get to G natural, okay? So let's do that. There we go. Now, do you see? It says just G. There's no sharp next to that, right? There we go. So just pay attention to that. Mistake number 5 is plucking the strings too quickly when you're tuning, okay? So sometimes I see people do this when they're tuning. They go like that. And when you do it like that, it just doesn't really give the note enough time to ring out. So really what's better is to go like this. So I'm going to actually untune my strings slightly. So I'm going to go. So see, I pluck it, I listen, and I look at what's happening. Okay, so this one is saying A sharp. Okay, I need to tune that note to a C. Okay, so I'm going to turn the tuning peg and make it a little higher. Okay, I went a little too far, and I'm going to lower it a little bit. There we go. But do you see how I'm letting the note ring out, and then I'm actually like even adjusting it while it's ringing out. I'm going, and then I'm turning it. I'm not going. So this is very common. I see people do this all the time when they're starting out. They go. Okay, and that's not what you want to do. You want to pluck it, let it while it's ringing out. You're turning it slightly. See, I'm turning it ever so slightly while it's ringing out. And then I'm looking at what's happening on the tuner. And there we are. Now we're in tune. Okay? And that is it. Those are the top 5 most common mistakes I see people make when they're starting out playing, when they're tuning their instruments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment to say hey. And by the way, if you're new to my channel, hello and welcome. My name is Gracie Terzian, and I post a video once a week here on YouTube. And if you want to become a subscriber, I'd love to have you here. I will see you guys next week. Thanks again so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day or night.